Welcome to the continuing conversation around art, placemaking, and how to create meaningful experiences in the built environment. I'm your host, Martha Weidman, CEO and co-founder of 9.Arts. And today I am pleased to have our guest on the show, Jake Harris, the founder and managing partner at Harris Bay. He's got a unique perspective on investing in distressed commercial real estate and opportunity zones. He's written a book called Catching Knives. And most recently, he's developing a cool new hotel in downtown San Antonio called the Artista, a project that 9.Arts and Harris Bay are collaborating on to highlight the Latin American culture and history throughout this contemporary, high-impact art experience. And since we recorded this episode, Jake, his partner Matt, and my business partner 9.Arts, Molly Casey, and I all had the really distinct pleasure of getting to spend some time together at the art markets in Mexico City. And I can promise you the art that we've selected for the Artista Hotel in San Antonio is going to knock your socks off. So I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope that you'll get a chance to visit the Artista when it opens. Jake, welcome to .
Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate I think that's a really clever name, the .
Well, thanks. It's kind of like, to be continued, etc. What else that you want to learn from the 9.Arts team? And it's really all about how can we use art and culture in the built environment to establish amazing places, to build incredible places. So before we jump into that, because I know we have a lot to discuss on that topic, tell our listeners a little bit more, about who you are, what you do, and why it matters.
Like you said, I'm the founder and managing partner of a boutique private equity company. We primarily invest and develop in the urban core of secondary and tertiary markets. And that's just a fancy way of saying smaller cities, or not kind of these kind of core primary, the LA, New Yorks, Miamis of the world. We're investing into San Antonio. We're investing into Milwaukee, Cincinnati, and some other kind of smaller cities that have what we believe really awesome culture and, granularity of details that are missing. And we're investing into that because of the urban renaissance that's happening this country over. And then obviously we're taking, and we have, or at least I have, some insights or investment thesis that people want to connect with community. And that is what we're kind of ultimately doing on the day job side of things.
Well, I want to ask about the definition of secondary and tertiary cities, because we hear that a lot kind of thrown out in real estate. I'm flying later this week to Wichita, Kansas for a major project. I'm not sure if that is even on the radar of secondary or tertiary. Is there another level, or what do you think?
I mean, probably rural. I mean, it's like, so, and that's what this is interesting, because I get asked these questions because I do commercial real estate. And so oftentimes people will see that I'm doing these deals and say, hey, can you come take a look at them or help me out or tell me about this definition. I don't know what this means from a commercial real estate. And at least they're understanding. So secondary, tertiary, they have no real defined definition. And same thing with a Class A property and a Class B property and Class C. And it's subjective. It's kind of like ski resorts. Ski resorts have different, a black diamond, a blue square, a green, and it typically is in reference to that particular mountain and or the area. So secondary, tertiary, rural, or whatever the other tiers of cities that rank are also a little bit subjective to what the person that's looking at it. So for us, we, tend to say secondary as something that may have a 1 million, person MSA, So the metropolitan statistical area is 1 million or more. There's about 50-ish, depending on what census data information you're looking at throughout the country. Tertiary would then be subsequent to those, and those may be 250,000. Less than that, you're in MSA. It's not even an MSA. It's not a metropolitan statistical area. I believe Wichita is. So I would probably classify Wichita as tertiary market. The primary or secondary markets of Kansas City or St. Louis, they're definitely not primary or core markets, depending on what you call them. So a little bit subjective.
Boom. You heard it here, Wichita. We're moving up today.
Yes.
Love it. So for our listeners, I want to talk about this concept of distressed investing, because you focus on distressed investments and, you not only real estate, but you're invested in other opportunities too. So really innovative thinker in how you approach your investments. But for the sake of at least this question, tell us about distressed investing. What does it mean? How do you approach it?
So I'm going to tell you a story. And I'll start with, first off, like the whole reason we're talking about that is I wrote a book during the pandemic called Catching Knives, a guide to investing in distressed real estate. So I was like, pandemic, things are falling apart. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of distress, and this is what I do really well. We're preparing for that. The government went out and printed $20 trillion plus. All real estate values tripled. So my crystal ball is very fuzzy and didn't accurately anticipate. And maybe we just kicked the can down the road and there's distress in the future. So the book talks about some of the principles and the understanding. And I'm going to actually take you back. Subsequently, kind of 20 years ago, I'd got out of the Army. I was getting out of the Army, and I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Mm-hmm. And that book really ushered in the next era of my life, is because I wanted to get into real estate, but I didn't know how to do that. There wasn't information out there. And so I took a job bartending at a golf course. I didn't want to go hang out in nightclubs and be out super late, but I wanted to be around rich people or successful people. And so I started bartending at a golf course, and I would ask people how I could become a millionaire before 30. And that was my goal. I wanted to be a millionaire before 30 because I'd read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but I didn't know how or where to start. And so the book kind of starts and tells a story of when I was in Tucson, down the street from the university. I was working on an adobe house, and I was sitting on the street corner and I was crying and like sobbing real tears. And I was broken, and not just from a emotional, but physical and just every single aspect. And I had a negative net worth. So I'd achieved the status of becoming a millionaire before 30. But then subsequently, in the downturn in the market, had lost everything. And not only lost everything, I had a negative net worth. And so I was sitting there on this street corner down in Tucson. I was working on this adobe house because I have some construction background and experiences. And I was praying, dear Lord, can I be worth nothing? Can I be nothing? Like, because zero would be better than where I am right now. So that was my experience, is, losing everything, a negative net worth, and then going back and buying real estate because of that distress component. And then the systems that I had to put in place. And so goals are fantastic for those people that want one-time success. Systems are for people that want repeated and predictable success. And so when I say that, is I was good at white knuckling a goal of becoming a millionaire. That book is about the systems I've developed and developed in what is a challenging time to be investing into real estate that produces results. And not just in distressed investing, but in almost any aspect of your life.
Yeah. Well, there's a similar philosophy I'm sure you've heard about, the Atomic Habits, where you build routines that are, even ones that are simple and small and easy to do, but become this source of incredible power and compounding growth because the system itself is built to provide the change that you want to see. Well, I think there's a multitude of ways to hear different stories, right? And your story is going to resonate with people in a different way, especially because you've got that personal component tied to it. I was really fascinated when I read about your background in construction, because in some ways, I've always felt like art and construction have a very symbiotic relationship. Architecture, art, building things, it's all about coming together to build something that's really incredible. And I've always felt that opportunity of making things and being able to make things with your hands is a life skill that you can take across multiple disciplines. So tell me a little bit more about your perspective on the construction industry, what's happening right now, and where you see things going.
It's tough to be a contractor right now where, the supply chain, to your point of the being able to understand how things are built and are made. And that was advice that was given to me when I was, like I said, at the country club, the ninth hole, it was actually called Tilly's Pub.
Nice.
And so at Tilly's Pub, I was working there as a bartender. Is a developer told me, he said, construction. Go into construction. And I said, real estate development. And he's like, no, construction, because of exactly the point that you just brought up. It's a foundational knowledge. And he's like, everything real estate has a contractor involved in it. I don't care if it's remodeling your kitchen. I don't care if it's building a new subdivision. I don't care if it's building a high rise. There's a contractor involved in that. And the people that understand and come from the trades have a kind of a leg up. You can go learn finances. You can learn pro formas and spreadsheets from college and get fancy degrees and have amazing spreadsheets. But like a contractor becomes paramount to everything real estate, because you have this interesting dance. Is you're competing against the same dollar that is remaining and left over after the materials, after it's kind of thing. Is like, then you and the contractors, the developer, are wanting that same dollar. They want to make as much money as they can. The developer wants to make as much money. And so you have this delicate dance that's chasing the same dollar, but you also need each other. And so it's this partnership and this dynamic that is very, very interesting. Where I believe that deviates from art is because you can go take $5 worth of art supply and paint and a canvas. And, you and I could maybe go paint something, but it's knowing how to put that in and evoke a certain amount of emotions. And those other things is where that value and intrinsic value has been derived and deviates. And I believe that art is really more in line with a human condition. And it is about visceral. Like sometimes people greatly dislike art. They're like, I hate it.
And that's okay.
And other times,
emotions
other
are
people
good.
love it. And they're like, I love it. It spoke to me. And you're just standing there and you're like, it spoke to you? Like what? And it's that component that is, you cannot necessarily quantify with how you make it and or having the right appropriate paint that might be $5 or $10. And when you disconnect from that as a developer, you become a little bit of the artist, because you become a little bit of what does the connectivity. And this is a combination of a team effort with an architect and engineers and consultants and interior designers. And what you're trying to do is develop something from that human condition element of, and really what I believe, and I think this is coming more in vogue, and there's more articles and more behavioral economics that are related to it, is people have more friends, more on their Instagram, TikTok, social media aspect, more followers, more interactions than they've ever had in the history of the world, but they're more lonely, more disconnected. Higher rates of depression and suicide and belonging. And so what happens is, what we're really seeking is, we are animals as humans, and we're tribal, and we seek community. And so you have the ability to architect community in the way that you lay out a building and the way you design and the way you think about the flow. And what's really, really exciting is the hospitality component that was exclusive to hotels is now permeating all real estate. And it's not just a hotel. It's not just the lobby. It's kind of like being that living room. And how do you come into the lobby of the office building? How does that lobby and that office building interact? And the amenities are the exterior. It's not Grandpappy's old office tower that's 40 stories tall and look, and my law firm's up there. It is like, where can I get food? Where can I connect up with it? How do I interact with that? What is that interesting story? And that's what architecture and development and hospitality is converging all in one. And then you put the icing on the cake of art does that and has this transcendent ability to pull things out of people that they can't describe or put words to, because it is connecting on a visceral kind of level of someone else's feeling that.
That was beautifully said. And in the way that you're describing it, it's really this collaborative effort, right? It's everyone coming together and bringing their strengths. So, having great food, having great architecture, having thoughtful design, having great, retail experiences, having art and culture, all coming together to create this sense of community that makes a place feel special.
Well, and I mean, collectively, we love being told stories.
Yeah.
We love being told stories. And that's how actually a lot of information has been conveyed through the existence of humans is stories. And so we resonate when someone says, once upon a time. It's not about standardizing something. And when you get to, we're going to standardize this, that's when you actually lose the people that are wanting that kind of special, unique experiences. And so that's where art and it's harder to do boutique hotels. It's harder to do these things. It's easier when you have a brand book that says, this is the paint color, this is the linen set, and this is our approved artwork, and you do that. It's easier to do that. But I believe there is a golden opportunity now and over the last, 5-10 years, as there's more access to those Instagrammed, people, these people are seeking out those unique experiences so they can go home and be the most interesting person at dinner for the next week or two, because they're going to tell you about their experience of going to this city to see this cool piece. And oh my gosh, I discovered this piece of art, and it was in the elevator, it was in the alley, it was in these other things. And not everybody even maybe experienced that same component. And it wasn't so in your face that it's that discovered art that becomes so special, that becomes unique to them.
And then they're going to share that, right? They not only with people at the dinner table, but share about it on social media. And then maybe they figure out who the artist is, and the artist is tagging about it. And so now you've got this built-in marketing system, right, to showcase a place that really is authentic, unique, and has connections to the community around it, because you're actually giving the power of that sharing tool to the people. It's not just, a top-down marketing campaign. So that makes a huge difference, I think, in this cultural shift, right? Finding places that are more unique, and why they can be successful is that there's a total democratization of sharing information now in ways that there wasn't before.
I mean, it's looking for that social proof.
Yeah.
I went to grad school at FIU, which is down in Miami. And so I was able to see firsthand the Goldman properties in Wynwood, and seeing how they were able to embrace street art and take this warehouse district and bring in, international or national and muralists and bring them in. And really, and it was the start of what I believe was taking street art to, more, and I wouldn't say fine art. Again, I'm not a technical kind of art person. If you're watching this on the video, there's a artwork piece behind my head.
Oh, I want to know about that. Will you tell us about it?
I will tell you about that.
Okay.
We've also instituted some of these things like Wynwood. We've had 90, 100 murals done on one of our sites down in San Antonio. And it's like the number 2 Instagram spot outside of the Alamo in San Antonio, because it's taking that street art, and there's a differences of it. There's, street art that's like tagging and graffiti and then putting your name on it. And there's street art that is creating these unique kind of artwork pieces that some of these people are starting to get into museums and getting finished pieces. And I mean, like, those unique ways in which those people are seeing the world is becoming more popular, and people are seeking those things out. And so how you can leverage those, I mean, I'm not going to say it's cliche, but it's the people that understand how to do it. It also becomes very, very powerful. Like, say, for instance, the Wynwood, the Goldman properties, they started having people show up there. Well, that then started supporting retail. They gave a lease to a museum for $1 a year. That lease then also started generating people attending there. That started coffee shops, then restaurants, and then it started and led to people wanting to live there. And then it becomes, one of the hottest, markets in all of Miami from a land value basis, because there's so much demand for people, and it becomes this kind of tourist attraction. And it was started by art, by how do you make these uninteresting single-story concrete and block buildings into something that people would be interested in seeing. And you can use art to usher those things in that actually has economic value to the fact that people want to go see it and touch it and take selfies in front of it. And especially in a digital world that is being shared out.
You and I are getting to go together to Mexico City to look for artwork for one of the projects we're working on together. Yeah.
I have a soundboard there. Sorry, I'm stoked for Mexico City. Sorry, I had to get that in there.
It's so exciting. And, we're going to go to some amazing art districts. And the whole purpose of this, though, is to find ways to add value to a project that we're working on together. So 9.Arts has been fortunate to be able to work with Harris Bay on the Artista Hotel in San Antonio. And I'd love for you to tell our listeners about what you're doing there, and this Riverwalk project and concept, your vision, and what this is going to add to that whole neighborhood.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been investing in San Antonio for the last 7 years. I use a lot of data analytics to anticipate stories. Like I said, stories are great for telling what the past is, but when you're investing into something, you're predicting what the future is going to be. And I already told you that my predictions of distressed real estate coming, in short order from the book was not completely accurate, but I also believe that is given a long enough time period, there will be distress coming back. So when I look at data and demographics, and San Antonio is unbelievable from an opportunity to invest into that market. I have another, macro geopolitical kind of lens in which I'm looking at a longer time period. Is North America and South America are going to need to become a lot friendlier in sharing of resources, human resources and actual natural resources like lithium and copper and cobalt and iron ore and all these other things, as continued geopolitical things heat up between China and obviously, when we're recording as terrible things happening in Russia and Ukraine. And as there's more volatility from a global standpoint, I see some globalization and repatriating of manufacturing coming back to North America. And I believe Mexico and Latin America will become a much more beneficial recipient of capital and human capital and technology. So, of course, that has a lot of benefits of Mexico pushing up into San Antonio, a lot of things happening, population migration and businesses relocating to Texas. And so when I say is there's an overlay of things that are happening into the future, and the city of San Antonio is investing massively into their infrastructure and expanding it. When I look at this, is I'm really fascinated by Spanish colonial architecture and Spanish colonial kind of the empire that was built off of that. Again, that may have predicated from time and spending and traveling around Spain before I married my wife. But and really, if you go down to Argentina or Habana or Medellin, Colombia, or Cartagena, or all of these cities where the Spanish colonial empire kind of expanded, it's built for humans. It's built for community. And so really in the United States in the last 50, 60 years, or 70 years, whatever it is, has been doing a fantastic job of designing for a car. And for transportation, it's been not for designing for the human. And so what people really typically like about Europe is the fact that everything's walkable and connecting and it's close and you can walk everywhere in 15 minutes. The Spanish colonial architecture has done that throughout the world and especially in Latin America. And so when I see that, is San Antonio has hundreds of years of history. It's a 300-year-old Spanish colonial city that the viceroy out of Mexico designated based on the King of Spain's directive. And so it's got all this history to it. And the Riverwalk site came available. I was, really trying to put this together. And then we bought the 10-story office building next door that we converted to apartments. And then we have the parking garage. And so we now have this kind of mixed use kind of scale to get and layer in hospitality, multifamily parking, and a lot of other things into what we are trying to do as an investment thesis, is that we want some critical mass to that. So Artista is really paying homage to the history of the city. And typically in Texas, it's a lot of cowboys and, Indians and shoot them up and cows and, the vacas and, but we're like, how do we lean more into the Spanish colonial history and the roots of this, and really opened up the aperture of Colombia and Venezuela and Peru and all of, Central America and Mexico, because of its relationships as San Antonio. We started developing and thinking about this in a bigger kind of lens of not just Texas or not just San Antonio, but the entire region as a whole. And how can we highlight that into, and then obviously the poignant component of Artista Hotel being a luxury boutique hotel, 120 keys, is we have now a little bit of scale to layer in. And then it's also a little bit of we take liberty of leaning into some modern interpretation of this. Is we're not going to just say, hey, here's a historic piece from Peru or Mexico City and ta-da, it's art. We're going to take our own interpretation and author a little bit of the future of San Antonio, taking these roots. And that's what's so special, in my opinion, about San Antonio as a city, is even though it's got all this history, there is a capability to author a little bit of the future of that city and then layer in that culture vibe and then put something out there that can sustain much longer than I will exist in that city or probably in this planet.
The way you're describing it, it sounds like the community and the city is also very supportive and putting in the infrastructure that needs to be there to create success, for the whole area.
Well, and I think we become a champion of the city because there's a lot of people that are moving into there. They're looking for that. What is the future? And not to say that we're not ignoring the past. We're embracing the past. But we're taking that, like you said, a little bit of that interpretation to what is San Antonio to us. And it is an evolution of that culture. And this is our interpretation for taking these things and then elevating it to the next level. Yeah. And so I love the interactive parts. And then obviously, and I don't know if you've gotten the chance or distill down like why I was interested in 9 Dot, why working with 9 Dot. Is it's taking all of those things. It's like just sourcing art and hiring an art consultant and go slap some stuff on the wall. Like I can do that. Like I can just go down and think, but it's how you layer those all together. How do you make them also interactive? How you become and create some found art moments, and how do you take that story and then create kind of a through line through the property. And those are the things that become really, really important that you can't necessarily. Again, like being an artist, I believe 9 Dot is kind of like an artist in the way that they're curating it through this process of a built environment. And I've seen that. I've toured some of your properties. I've had, friends, and mentors reference you guys. And it was like, man, oh, I didn't even know Nine Dot did that, but I loved it. Like it was so awesome to me. And so that's why it became, I wouldn't say an easy decision, but a fairly easy decision that, hey, we're working with Nine Dot.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, it's been an exciting process along the way. And I think the key is getting those elements of modern luxury, but with this historic view. The way that we are going to be able to embrace cultural diversity as the backbone to the history of San Antonio is, as you described, it's the safest city in Mexico. And that's why we're really leaning in and working with a number of Mexican artists, hence the trip that's coming up. So I appreciate your willingness to be totally creative in that process too. There's multiple layers to it too, right? You've got architecture, you've got design elements, you've got art that you might traditionally think of as art hanging on a wall, then you've got components of styling and objects and installation. So all of that is going to be happening at the Artista in San Antonio. So definitely put it on your radar as the next destination to check out in the safest city of Mexico in the south of Texas. So before we wrap here today, I want to ask a couple of questions in our closing. What industry trends are you seeing that you think might impact the way you work moving forward?
I think the metaverse NFTs are going to actually become a vehicle that disrupts loyalty brands, and the Hiltons and Marriotts is that NFTs will become much more specialized, unique, special interest groups that then have a lot of collective power and synergies are related around to them. And the people that, and why we're actually launching an NFT project that we've been working on for a while and we'll continue to do, because the future of it is what we're most excited about. We're not trying to make a significant amount of money or anything that I think a lot of people were doing, and just kind of these smash and grab components of NFT. So that, but then layering in that is you're going to get real-time feedback on the consumers, and you're going to get the ability to then start creating very unique experiences to one person. Yeah. And then that one person, and I think even some of them will be non-digital. And as far as, what is old is new. And so you're going to see kind of, again, a little bit of a renaissance of things that are non-digital, or a morphing of those two. Is how is there an overlay of digital, or I'm not completely bought into virtual reality and some of those, the metaverse aspects of it. But, that is what I am still, I believe is going to at least cause some changes into the future.
Yeah, I love that you're thinking about that. There's a lot to explore and a lot still to unfold to see how it changes things. Well, let me ask about a piece of artwork or a personal art experience, a concert, a play, architecture, a museum visit, something like that maybe made an impression on you or was especially memorable.
I was listening to some music, and I was actually on top of a mountain, and I was snowboarding down, and it was one of those like amazing bluebird powder days in the spring where nobody was out there and I was alone basically. And I was listening to them. I like some electronic music. I like a chill kind of dance music. And really what I like about it is this kind of rhythmic beat of it. And I believe that music is one of those things that's also kind of touching into the soul. And it was just like this beat and the rhythm. And it was, and I wasn't like tired, but I was physically doing stuff. And I was snowboarding on this kind of powder day. And it was the trees and the pine trees and just nature. And I just stopped for a second halfway down the mountain or down the slope and just sat there. I looked up the mountain at the sun and it's shining through the trees. And it was not only the music, but it was just like such a real experience. It was just like, wow.
I love it. And what an incredible experience that I think so many of our listeners can really understand themselves too. Well, thanks so much for being on the show today, Jake. You've been an amazing guest. And if our listeners want to learn more about you and your work, we've got the Catching Knives a guide to investing in distressed commercial real estate, check out Jake's book. He's got a podcast. Check out Harris Bay. We'll include links to those, as well as some of the other things that you heard today on our show in the Artista Hotel. But Jake, tell us more about where you want to direct people, where they can find you.
So the main website is catchknives.com. That's all one word, knives as in plural with an S. We have a newsletter there. We kind of disseminate all the information. Personally, Instagram is where I'm most active, and that's awesome. Jake.realestate. So at Jake. As in the period, real estate. You can find me there.
Thanks so much for being on the show, Jake, and look forward to seeing you in Mexico in just a few weeks.
Cheers. Awesome. See you later.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to ... today. And for more information about our guest and what we chatted about, check out our show notes at 9.arts.com/podcast. Keep in mind that's 9.arts spelled out.com/podcast. And to keep up with our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to 9.arts on YouTube or subscribe to ... wherever you get your podcasts. If you're looking to transform your next project with art, please email us, letstalk@9.arts.com. And here's to wishing you continued creativity. Until next time.